September 1st, 1939. The world stood at the edge of another catastrophe. Only 20 years had passed since the guns of the First World War had fallen silent. Many believed humanity had learned its lesson. They were wrong. Across Europe, old wounds remained open. Economic crises shattered nations. Political extremism grew. Fear spread. And a new generation emerged that had never experienced the horrors of the previous war. Soon, armies would march again. Cities would burn. Entire nations would fight for survival. And humanity would enter the deadliest conflict in its history. This was World War II, the war that reshaped the modern world. The origins of World War II cannot be understood without understanding the First World War. The Treaty of Versailles left deep scars. Germany faced economic hardship. Political instability increased. Many citizens felt humiliated. At the same time, the Great Depression spread across the globe. Millions lost jobs. Governments struggled. Democratic institutions weakened. Extremist movements gained support. Across Europe and Asia, new leaders promised strength, stability, and national renewal. The stage was being prepared for another global conflict. In Germany, one figure rose above all others: Adolf Hitler. A veteran of the First World War, a gifted speaker, a master of political propaganda. He promised national revival, economic recovery, military strength. Millions listened. Millions supported him. By 1933, Hitler had become Chancellor of Germany. Soon, democratic institutions disappeared. Opposition was suppressed. Power became concentrated in the hands of a single regime. Germany was changing rapidly, and Europe watched with growing concern. Throughout the 1930s, Germany expanded its influence. Territories were annexed. Military strength increased. Diplomatic agreements failed. Many leaders hoped conflict could still be avoided. Compromises were made. Warnings were ignored. Yet each crisis brought Europe closer to war. The final spark arrived in 1939, the invasion of Poland. On September 1st, 1939, German forces crossed the Polish border. The attack introduced a new style of warfare: speed, coordination, shock, blitzkrieg. Tanks advanced rapidly. Aircraft struck strategic targets. Communication systems coordinated movements with unprecedented efficiency. The campaign demonstrated the terrifying effectiveness of modern mechanized warfare. Within days, Europe was once again at war. Many expected a long defensive struggle. Instead, Germany achieved rapid victories. Belgium fell. The Netherlands fell. France faced catastrophe. The German advance moved faster than many believed possible. By June 1940, Paris had fallen. One of Europe's most powerful nations had been defeated. The balance of power shifted dramatically. The future appeared uncertain, and Britain now stood largely alone. The skies above Britain became the next battlefield. Aircraft filled the air. Radar transformed defense. Pilots fought exhausting engagements. The outcome mattered enormously. If Britain fell, Europe's future might change completely. Yet resistance remained strong. The Royal Air Force endured. The invasion never came. For the first time, Germany's expansion had been stopped. In 1941, Germany launched Operation Barbarossa, the invasion of the Soviet Union. It became one of the largest military operations in history. Millions of soldiers, thousands of tanks, vast distances. Initial advances proved dramatic, yet the campaign encountered enormous challenges. The Soviet Union refused to collapse. Winter arrived. Resources stretched thin. The conflict became increasingly brutal. A turning point was approaching. On December 7, 1941, another event transformed the war. Japanese aircraft attacked Pearl Harbor. The United States entered the conflict. Industrial power shifted dramatically. New resources became available. New armies mobilized. The war expanded even further. It was now truly global. The outcome would affect every continent. World War II was not only a military conflict, it was also a human tragedy on an immense scale. Millions of civilians suffered. Among the darkest chapters was the Holocaust. Millions of Jews were systematically murdered. Other groups were also persecuted and killed. The Holocaust remains one of history's greatest crimes. Its memory continues to remind humanity of the dangers of hatred, extremism, and dehumanization. The Battle of Stalingrad became one of the most important battles of the war. Fighting consumed streets, buildings, factories, entire neighborhoods. The struggle lasted for months. Conditions were horrific. Losses were immense. Eventually, German forces were surrounded. The defeat shattered the myth of invincibility. Momentum shifted. The road to Berlin had begun. On June 6, 1944, Allied forces landed in Normandy. Thousands of ships crossed the English Channel. Aircraft filled the skies. Soldiers stormed heavily defended beaches. The operation required extraordinary planning. Success was not guaranteed. Yet, the landings succeeded. Western Europe could now be liberated. The final phase of the war in Europe had begun. By 1945, Germany faced defeat. Allied armies advanced from multiple directions. Berlin became the final battlefield. Fighting intensified. The city suffered enormous destruction. Eventually, the Nazi regime collapsed. The war in Europe ended. Celebrations erupted. Yet another chapter remained unfinished. In August 1945, the world entered the atomic age. 2 Japanese cities became targets of nuclear weapons. The destruction shocked humanity. The war soon ended. Yet profound questions remained. Technology had reached unprecedented power. Humanity now possessed the ability to transform civilization or destroy it. World War II changed everything. Borders changed. Empires disappeared. New superpowers emerged. International institutions were created. Technology advanced rapidly. Yet the human cost remains impossible to ignore. Tens of millions died. Countless lives were forever altered. The war reminds us that progress alone does not guarantee wisdom, and that peace must often be protected deliberately. World War II was more than a war. It was a turning point in human civilization, a conflict whose consequences still shape our world today. Even today, the echoes of World War II remain visible in alliances, in international law, in technological development, in collective memory. The lessons of that conflict continue to influence leaders, nations, and ordinary people around the world, because some events become larger than history itself. They become warnings and reminders of what humanity can achieve and what humanity must never repeat.